This
Actually, April
conference
is.
will
I'm going to
now
kick
be
it off,
recorded.
actually. Oh, Ryan, come on. Good morning, everyone. I'm April McLeod, Programming Chair with Family Business. Welcome to our coffee chat. Today, we're going to talk about arts, entertainment, and travel. Three extremely interesting topics right now. Before we get started, I'll talk a little bit about the Family Business Association. So I work with a company called Simplicity, joined more than 3 years ago. The reason I was attracted to the organization was that I was involved with Progress Media prior and to Progress Squared, which was the networking group. And we were looking for a new organization. Once we lost Neville, we also lost all of the great things he created. So Family Business has been the best association that Simplicity has joined in terms of business development and opportunities, and for me personally, in terms of building great new relationships. So the organization exists to connect and support families and business and drive economic prosperity. And as a family business member, you join a peer group, and which becomes like your advisory board. We have a number of events, like pre-COVID. We had a number of really signature events, and now we put those events online, and we just recently did some hybrid events. So we're excited. This will be a great conversation to talk about what we maybe could expect in the future, or we can speculate. And we have a really strong advisory group in the Family Business Association to help support our family business members. So today we are I'm going to introduce our guests. I'm not going to read the full bio. It's on the website. And then after the intros, I have some questions for each of our guests today that pertain really to their industry. And then there are some questions that are really relevant to all. And so this is pretty casual. So those of you who are on, and if you can put your camera on, feel free to ask questions, add to the conversation. So I'm gonna kick it off. So we see Elizabeth Newman. She's in the top right corner on my screen. A lot of people, I'm sure, already know her or have seen her around because she is Vice President of Sales and Marketing there at Sierra for 26 years. And if you've been to any event in Halifax, she's probably been behind it. So we don't know each other very well, but I've certainly heard her reputation is very strong in the community, strong relationships, which allows her to create some really memorable events. Debbie Smith is a new member of Family Business Association. Looking forward to talking to Debbie. She's owner and personal travel consultant at All Points Travel, helping clients create and experience their dream vacations. So everybody's, I'm sure, anxious to talk about that. And Fiona is the principal of Brooks Diamond Productions, a family business since 1977, show producer, concert promoter, and project manager. A lot of the talent we know about in the region is really because of the work that Fiona and her company have done. So I thought I'd start there with you, Fiona, because back in March, what stands out to me after having to tell my daughter that her March break plans were probably not going to work out, we're all grappling with what are we going to do now that we're just staying home. And what I noticed was a surge in all of the entertainers online, and Facebook Live allowed them to come into our homes, but never this, it's obviously not the same as this live music experience, but so we're all really missing that music and theater experience. So why don't, if you would, could you talk about what's happened in the last 8 months in the entertainment business and how artists are responding, and what you see some of the trends might be? So I'll just throw it over to you.
Yeah, you're right. It has been pretty much devastated our industry. Just off the top of my head, I would say our revenue has dropped into the probably around 70%. Our chief product is artists and the live performance arena. And as you know, live performance venues, they were closed for a long time. Some are still closed and will remain so until God knows when. Some of the smaller venues, interestingly, are now starting to open up again. And so we are finding a bit of an upsurge in terms of work, in that we are putting our artists into venues with audiences of anywhere from 35 to 300. None of those really make any sense financially, but our chief concern is getting the artists to be out there working, continue to expose them to build their audiences, which they have to do whether there's COVID or not. As to the online experience, yes, I would say at the beginning, and sort of for the last few months, there has been an incredible surge of online experiences. Many of them at the beginning were free, and they were very, what I would kind of call them amateurish, even though they were often professional performers. When they went on, they would do their performances on, let's say, their Facebook page, and they were bad. I couldn't even watch them. It was not good, and I don't think it was good for the industry. But gradually, people started to figure out that, and so they started to do a more professional job. And since that time, we've had a number of concerts online that have done well, and they're paid. So you pay to do them, and you pay to watch them, and that's working quite well. But frankly, I don't think it's ever going to replace live performance. And the fact that more and more venues are now contacting us and saying they want to do more live stuff is very encouraging to me. But it's going to take a long time for us to get out of this, I'm afraid. And it's very difficult to even know how to plan.
Right. Yeah. And since you mentioned venues, Elizabeth, let's talk about what's going on in your world, and to tell us, from, I guess it would have been in March when I think that's when it was March 9th or 12th or something, when everything sort of shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Sudden, because we had a meeting. We were all talking about what we were going to do about our events, and the next day it was like, yeah, everything's closed. So,
yeah.
I mean, take us through what happened and where things are now.
Okay. My heavens, that seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Back in March when things were, when we talked about what was normal, and when everything happened in March. And if you recall, the governments came in with a restriction of 150 people on that first weekend. And we had 2 big events booked that weekend. So food was already prepared, so on and so forth. So the events canceled. And our first item of action was, what are we going to do with this food? We had to get it out to shelters and kitchens and so on and so forth. And then when we immediately closed down all of our operations, all of our restaurants, the next thing was then all the restaurants were filled with food. And so the food stock, again, had to go to out to organizations and so on and so forth. But even things like draft beer lines, right? All of that had to be disposed of and so on. So there was lots of activity, no good activity, but lots of activity. And so everything was shut, except we kept the arms at the Lord Nelson open for takeout business only. Mm-hmm. And literally, when we left the office, that at that point, we really thought we were looking at 2 to 3 weeks, right? And then things would be back. And I realized how naive we were, or just it was all new to us. And so since then, we've seen lots of things happen, but we have spent our time spinning and juggling, particularly with the events end of our world, because We had many events booked for the spring. Spring is our busiest time of year. We took all those spring events. Michelle, you know this. We took our spring events, moved them into the fall. Now those fall events have moved into next spring. So every day we were busy, but we were just, Fiona, you'd have been going through the same thing. You're just spinning around and trying to recreate and whatnot. So when the restaurants reopened, and we have 7 restaurants in the city, and each one has had a different experience. So I'll speak quickly. The Agricola Street Brasserie is doing phenomenally well. The people, we've added another patio there. The people in that neighborhood have really supported the location, and they've been doing great. The Bistro Lecoq, which to me had some of the finest food in Halifax, it didn't make it because our demographics, our audience there are an older demographic. We really rely on the audience of Neptune. And so we closed, well, we rebranded Bistro Lecoq into Bianca Aperitif Bar. We were fortunate that we could do that on the fly, that we could make that transition. So, and it's doing quite well. And it's next door to East Grafton, and East Grafton has been doing okay. Then we have the Waterfront Warehouse downtown. In the summer, Waterfront Warehouse does great because it has a big patio. So what we saw was people wanted to be outside, and they feel safer outside, and so on and so forth. So Waterfront Warehouse, I mean, nothing like our numbers in the past, but certainly we got through there. And Shuck at on Lower Water Street, it's having struggles because it's normally a visitor destination. Cut Steakhouse isn't doing too bad on the weekends. During the week is trying. So each one has been different. So then, as far as our catering end of things, our revenue's down about 95%, I would say. Everything at Pier 21 and at the Kennard Centre canceled or postponed. I shouldn't use the word canceled. Most of it has postponed. And so it's been, and so there's lots of people, so many, and we talked briefly yesterday, we have so many clients who call us and say, what do you know? When are you going to reopen? And we don't know anything different. But here's the thing that we say, we are open. There just aren't events that can be accommodated or, that are willing to book at this point in time. And with, for example, the Kennard Centre or Pier 21, the gathering limitations indoors are 200, socially distanced. So we just need some folks who want to do dinners for 200, and we can go from there.
Yeah. So Debbie, over to you. The travel and industry. I mean, from my perspective, it looked like just everything came to a grounding halt. Like get our Canadians home, and then we're shutting down the airports. Though I still hear stories about people traveling, which I'll like, so I'm not really sure what's happening. So I'm interested to hear from you about what actually was happening, what's going on right now.
Well, the same with everybody. Mid-March, everything came to a screeching halt. This also happened right in the middle of travel's busiest season for down south. We spent weeks trying to cancel reservations, get people home. As everything was shutting down, the planes were closing down. We had people stranded in locations. That was a challenge. I've had people that were at one resort and they shut the resort down while they were there. And then they cut the planes going to once a week. So trying to make sure they were looked after until they could get back to the airport. It was actually just an absolute nightmare. Luckily, I've had everybody get home and everything's okay. Now everybody's looking at, hopefully, a lot of people wanted their refunds. The tour operators decided to go with the credits instead. So that made a lot of people unhappy, but at least it's something. People, yes, there is still people traveling, and it's slowly coming back now. The resorts down south a lot of them are open or soon to be open. The planes are still up here anyway, are having socially distanced seats. Down the States, I hear it's not happening like that anymore. They pretty well eliminated the empty middle seat. But yes, people are traveling. a lot of protocols are in place. I think when you get to the resort, you will be pretty safe there. I have friends that have gone. Slowly getting back to normal. I really think it's going to be a while. And I have had people asking about maybe 2022, but I don't know anybody that's planning to go for March break this year or even in the winter. I have very little going on. So it's going to take a while for this to come back. Hopefully it'll come back stronger than ever. I know I want to travel again, so I'm sure other people want to also. So
Yes,
that's
and
about it.
I would be, we talked about this a little bit before people hopped on the call, but there is a headline right now that we might be able to, add Cuba to our province somehow, that there may be a way to take a group of people there. Did you have a comment on that story?
Well, as we were saying, if it happens, it'll be fantastic. And I know a lot of people really are missing traveling. And if they could do this Atlantic bubble, it would be fantastic. The issues that they're going to have is the 14-day isolation when you return is still mandatory. So you have to deal with that. But this, if you're okay with taking people like 2 extra weeks, or if you're working at home, that might be an option. There is also the issue that if you're taking this bubble to the airport, you're not going to be the only people at the airport. You're not going to be the only people that are flying down to Cuba. So you will, at the other end, you will have people at the airport. You've got people that are delivering food to the resort. So it's not just lifting up a group of people and taking it to another spot. You are going to come in contact with other people. There's no way you can avoid that. You've got food people that are bringing stuff in. You've got the transfer companies. I don't know how they're going to get around that. If they could, it would be amazing and fantastic. There may also be the chance that they're hoping that this fast screening will be done before it happens in February, which would be another option. That would be fantastic. Right now, this is only in Calgary. It's going to be, the trial won't even be over until after this flight goes. So we'll see. It's all up in the air. If it works, it would be fantastic. I know a lot of people would jump on going to Cuba right now. So yeah, so everything, it's still just wait and see what happens. So, and I hope it works. I really do. So
Yeah. Well, with so much uncertainty and change and really devastation to some of these industries, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the innovative things you've seen in your industries. Like, what are some things that are happening that because in difficult times, people can get resourceful. So maybe we can talk about just some things you've seen, and everybody else in the who's listening as well, feel free to jump in and let's talk about that for a little bit.
I think the biggest thing I've noticed, and it's actually been a good thing, is the promoting of domestic traveling. Nova Scotia tourism has done really well, making people or getting people to travel in their own province. So a lot of people have got to see things that are right in their backyard that they haven't seen, because it's always like, oh, I can always go there. So you're traveling outside. Now, with lack of choice of going outside of the province or the country, you're actually taking advantage of that, and people are going to, like, so many people went to Cape Breton or down to Yarmouth or over to New Brunswick, just seeing things that they've always put on their list to do sometime down the road, and they're actually getting to see people and things around here now that they wouldn't have seen. So
Yeah.
that is the biggest thing I've noticed. Yeah, I guess that would be my big thing. And people, again, if you're trying to do this social distancing, if you want to travel, people are okay. Some people are okay with that, doing the 14-day isolation if they want to. So,
What about
which
you,
is an
Fiona?
option.
Oh, sorry,
Pardon?
Debbie.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm so didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm telling
Okay.
you.
So Fiona, what about in your industry?
I'd say the online performance is the most innovative thing. The other thing that's very cool is, and I should say, people are you know, from both the technology perspective and the production perspective, people are working hard to make it better and better. And so I'm seeing a big improvement on what you can see, mostly in the pay-per-view world. So it's costing a little money. And you know, Neptune, for example, has their Neptune at Home program, which you can buy a subscription and watch all kinds of different things with your subscription. And also, Bruce Guthrow, for example, did his Songwriters Circle online. And again, it was by subscription, so you paid X number of dollars and you could watch like 12 shows or whatever. And festivals like Celtic Colors have done the same thing. Again, it's not a perfect solution in any way, because it's really at the mercy of the internet provider. And so there's lots of stories of people who paid money and then in the middle it froze or something happened, and there's just no way you can control the worldwide internet. But another cool thing we're working on, I'm not going to give too much of it away, but it's more using projection. And we're working on bringing in something in the spring that will be pretty spectacular, that one has never seen before here. And it's actually an art show done with projections. And it's very cool. And these have become popular worldwide. And again, it's just a new way of producing performance, visual art, etc. So we're quite excited about that.
Elizabeth?
Before I forget, I just want to mention Fiona and I were together at a meeting a few months ago, Fiona, the coalition meeting we had at the Marriott. And it was the first time that there had been a group that went out and got together. It felt so good to see people face to face, you know, socially distanced, but to be in a setting where you hear applause and whatnot. And it really made you realize what we've always taken for granted. And nothing beats being together. A lot of the events that we do are fundraising events. And whether there's COVID and whether we can't meet, these organizations still need to raise money. And so there's been lots of different concepts, and there's been many virtual events that I've attended, and some are okay and some are underwhelming. So we're working with groups to see how we can do different things. We recently did a fundraiser a couple of weeks ago, and what the organization did was that they sold, a host would buy a table of 10 that would be in their home. So it was bubbles of 10. And then they ordered meals from one of our restaurants, and we delivered that. Then there was a virtual show, and it was well timed. It wasn't overwhelming, and it was really well received, and it went well, and the organization made good dollars. So the other thing that we're looking at with other groups is where we can have 200 people in a room is to have your sponsors in a room, so that there's some, you know, interaction with the stage and whatnot, and then have the rest virtual, have a hybrid. So every day we're looking at new things, but I agree with Fiona. I mean, the production, we've learned a lot in the last few months, and yeah, it's just going ahead.
Yes.
I just noticed a comment on the chat about the Atlantic Film Festival. And I got to say, the film world obviously has a big advantage. They work way better online. And so that I suspect that could be a boon for them, because I too watched 15 films this year. I've never watched, I go to the film festival every year, but usually for a day or for a couple of films. But because I never have time, and, you know, to go out every night and so on is a challenge, but to sit in your living room and watch them online and then watch the interactive chats afterwards, it was fantastic. So I think, and as you said, I think they are going to keep that format. And I think we are going to be able to have access to other types of film festivals and so on in the same way. So I think that's a positive.
Mhm. Yes, certainly viewership of all programming is up as we're all sitting at home looking for what's the next thing. And I see that all the time on my social channels, like, what do you recommend? I'm out of a show. So yeah, that's been really interesting. And so, I mean, we're talking all about this as, you know, this is what's happening in industry, but it's happening to the people in the industry. So, like, I mean, you being in that industry or tapped into some of the stories of like how are people surviving? What can be done? Are there any recommendations? What could government be doing differently? What could we as individuals be doing to help these people within industry survive? Anyone? Yeah.
Eat out at your local restaurant. If you're not comfortable being in a restaurant, order takeout. One thing I found being home for a few months, I got very tired of my own cooking. And so, and I mean, everybody, you know, food can be delivered and whatnot. So when we say shop local, I mean, think about it, you know, order takeout and support where you can. And to the quick point about support, if it wasn't for the wage subsidy with helping with our restaurants, it would make a huge, huge difference. So that has really helped us. We're anxious to hear, you know, the government says there's wage subsidy is going to be ongoing, but we don't know the extent or the percentage. So we're anxious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo Elizabeth in terms of buying local. It's the same with performers. You know, there are venues that are doing live performance. They're following all the COVID regulations fastidiously, I would say. And so I see very little risk. We have, you know, negligible COVID here in our wonderful Atlantic bubble. And so I encourage people, I am finding there are people who are resistant to going out their door, and you can't really blame them, but I just would encourage people to, you know, to go and try it and see what it's like. But it seems to be working. It's not causing any spread. And, you know, from the artist's perspective in particular, you might have read the article about Chris Ludica, Old Man Ludica, who's a, you know, a very successful musician, and he's turned into a fisherman to try and feed his family during this. And there's a lot of performers who are really, really struggling. Another performer I know has become a knife sharpener, which is a little bit odd, but you know, that's a skill set he had, I guess. But so it is very tough. I make no bones about that. Our industry is suffering terribly, and we have not gotten government support to any degree. And because we're kind of different from traditional industries, we don't really have employees. It's more we work with contract employees, which makes it really difficult to get support. And so, you know, the organization Elizabeth spoke of was an informal coalition of people in the meetings and events world who found themselves with no voice because we don't really have an industry spokesperson. So yes, we could use support. The entire tourism industry is well, it's been devastated, and you know, the worst is we don't even know if it's going to come back next summer. I pray to God that it will, but we don't know that. And so, as I said earlier, it makes it so difficult to plan. So I'd say for people out there, take a chance, go see live performance.
Yeah. And Debbie, I know a lot of people who took advantage of traveling around the region, which was awesome, because we often don't think about, or know about even some of the places. So besides continuing to do that, do you have any advice for what we can be doing, or what should be happening in your industry?
Oh my. I know we've had some events that are virtual travel shows just to give people the idea of like travel from your living room idea. It helps a little bit. But right now, again, if you're thinking that you want to travel, as long as you're willing to take the precautions, it
Mhm.
will slowly come back. I am hoping that we can get through this winter without a complete lockdown again. I know everybody's kind of nervous about that.
Yeah.
I really don't know what. I want everybody to be careful, and it's really scary to think that if you start moving around, it could spread again so quickly.
Yeah.
But again, right now, just staying local and enjoying what we have around here until we can safely travel again, I think would be the biggest thing.
And John has made a comment here in the chat. Just got off the phone with someone who landed in England, 30 people on a plane that seats 300. So
Wow.
that can be very profitable for the
That's
airline.
that's perfect. Well, no, it's not though. And the airlines are suffering so badly right now too, as is everybody. So yeah, it's really affected this industry.
And Michelle's asking, and this is a great question, how safe is plane travel?
I read something last week that said catching COVID on an airplane is the equivalent to getting struck by lightning. So as long, I don't know, it was just an article, like whether it's completely true or not, hopefully, but as long as they're doing the distancing and, your masks are mandatory on the planes. I haven't heard of all the people that have been coming in on the planes that there was a possible connection. I don't think I've heard any that have actually caught it from the plane by being on the plane with somebody else that had it. But, it's so important to keep having your safety with your distance and your mask, and unfortunately, less people on the plane total is going to help.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm wondering, we're talking about all the things we can do. Is there, and there must be, I think there's many, but for restaurants and venues, is there a place we can direct people to, that we could post on our website so people could know which restaurants are open and who's doing pickup? And I know there's, because I've gone looking and I'm like, I wish there was just like one spot, because I can go to I think it's Downtown Halifax website has some of that about their members, and then Halifax Retails does a pretty good job of it. But is there any that you know of that you would promote, Elizabeth, in your?
Hmm.
Do you know of any that we could direct people to, or maybe we can do a little research on that ourselves?
Yeah, Discover Halifax, their site may be good. And there's a program, we're all working and trying to do different things. And, some restaurants are looking at extending their patio season and putting, better structures outside, so that, people will sit outside up till Christmas and whatnot. And I think that we'll see how that goes. Develop Nova Scotia is doing a program called Evergreen Festival along the waterfront, and it's going to be a 1-month program, and it'll be to entice folks to get out and come downtown and whatnot. So I would say Discover Halifax is probably the best site. And one of the things as restaurants that our company is doing is that we're promoting that people for Christmas giving, that they get at the Arms. Each week we do a family meal, and it's reasonably priced. It's a meal for 4, and you get it for $75, and you pick it up, or we deliver it to you, and we change it each week. And so we're suggesting to people, buy this as a Christmas gift for someone else, right? And they can get it at some time. Or the other thing we're doing is we're doing a feast box from Cut. and it includes steaks, and it includes how to cook them from, directions from the chef and whatnot. Or we're saying, or give somebody an RCR gift card, gives them a selection of 7 different restaurants. And so, we're trying to plant the seed with people, that then, those are nice gifts. And Fiona, it would be great to ask people to purchase tickets for someone else to one of your performances, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's helping us all.
So that was my next.
You could have dinner first.
How do we find out like where the concert, like where everything is happening? Where should we go to learn about that?
Well, that's a good question. There's, the Coast is great. They have a weekly newsletter. Facebook. There's not really a central. I guess the Coast would be the closest thing to a central information place of events.
Yeah, that is. You're right. I haven't checked that one in a while, so that's really good advice. Like buying tickets and gift cards and to support all of the local businesses. And then Debbie, any advice? Like I know there's some travel sites, and usually, I've gone down the rabbit hole of like looking for cottages in Nova Scotia. There's like 3 main sites, but I think I've looked at every single possibility. But anyway, any advice from you about where you would direct people to find out about maybe local travel?
I use like the Nova Scotia website. I've found things on that, or Discover Nova Scotia. Or even just Googling cottages in Nova Scotia or things to see in Nova Scotia, and it will come out with tons of stuff, So I've used that myself, trying to find things. So, and it works. It does give you lots of like the 10 best resorts, hotels to stay in. It's a good starting point, and then you can certainly find things from there.
Yeah. And I'm definitely seeing like lots of recommendations in social media feeds, right? As people are, just like I said, looking for what should I watch next.
Exactly.
So we should all be diligent, making sure we point them to local. Go to this concert instead of binge watching that next show on Netflix. Are there any comments from anybody who's tuned in and listening? Even like what your experience has been, or any questions for our panelists today?
I have a comment. Our company this year, usually we go to a restaurant for our Christmas party, and we bring spouses. So we have about 75 or 80 people usually showing up, and I'm sure, we usually mix it up every 2 or 3 years, go to a different restaurant. And I'm sure that's big business for a lot of these restaurants at Christmas time. So we made the unfortunate decision to cancel our Christmas party because, part of our Christmas party is our culture and being able to move around and talk to each other. So we couldn't really figure out how we could all get into a restaurant and still kind of be together, especially if we were all spaced out. But what we're doing instead is we're going to pick 3 or 4 restaurants, and we're going to give people an option just to order food. And one day we're going to kind of close a little early and just do our food that way, do our Christmas party in the office, and still a way to kind of support some of these restaurants. But you guys might be able to comment. I'm sure Christmas time is a busy time for restaurants, and I'm sure a lot of businesses might be doing the same thing as us. I don't know, but it was a tough decision because we were, with the bookings of restaurants and Christmas parties, you got to book pretty far out. So we just kind of made this decision.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of that, and that's where these purchasing family meals, just as you're saying, purchasing family meals or the cut box or the gift certificates, we're sending that out to companies. And Michelle, if you would distribute that through your newsletter or whatever, we'd really appreciate it. But to your point, so even Christmas parties that a couple of months ago said, I think we're going to have it. Now that's changing, and because so much of that culture, it's networking, it's being face to face and chatting. And we're seeing lots of that. Because you still want to appreciate your employees too, right? So you want to be giving them something.
Yeah. Elizabeth, that's a really good point about sending out the newsletter. I think now more than ever, this new communication that we're in at the moment, that every venue like that should be taking advantage of their mailing list to send a message out and say, by the way, we're still here to cater your corporate parties. We're at the location of your choosing. You know, here are some options and that sort of thing, to remind everyone that, you know, the holidays are going to be a little bit different this year and it's time to start planning.
Absolutely. I think it's better now, but like in the beginning when looking for who was open, there were an alarming number of places that had no update on their website, you know, like a COVID update and how operations were being impacted and what they were still able to do. So yeah, to your point, Maria, communication is always key.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other comments or questions?
Fiona, maybe this is a question for you. What's happening with the symphony? You know, all of those big venues at the Rebecca Cohen. Are they having any events at all?
The symphony is actually doing a number of events all over the city, and they're little events. And you can go to the symphony website to see where these are. They're kind of cool. Like they're doing a brunch at the Carlton, for example. I think they're doing something at the library. They're going to, again, smaller venues. They're smaller. It's not the whole symphony. It's pieces of the symphony. The Rebecca Cohen is actually closed and they're renovating. So they had initially planned to be closed over 2 summers to do their renovations. And because of COVID, they decided they'd just go for it and close until I think they're opening again in 2021, probably in the spring. We've got a show there at the end of March. Maybe, I don't know. So they'll be open again, but they are a bit of an anomaly. And Neptune, of course, is closed. But venues and you know, the library isn't doing anything in O'Regan Hall, or not much anyway. So there's not a lot of activity going on in the city other than places like the Marquee, which is doing some very cool things. I must give them a little plug. They've kind of changed their look and they're doing live shows. I went to see Lenny Gallant there and it was lovely. It's more sort of like, and so that's kind of cool. Other than that, there are venues outside the city, like the smaller arts centers, like the Marigold Center in Truro is fully active, but just tiny, tiny little audiences. Same thing in some of the other places across Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Interesting.
Intimate settings, you would call those, Fiona, I guess.
It is cool. I mean, it's there is something to be said. I mean, except for the fact that nobody's making any money. You know, like I go to a yoga studio and I love it because it's all, you know, you don't have some sweaty person sitting 6 inches from you now. You're nice in the face, and I really like it. I'm sure they don't love it, but so there are some advantages to the social distancing thing. But yeah, in the entertainment world now, everything is an intimate experience.
Yeah.
But those performances would be so memorable if you were in that audience.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I would think anyone in those audiences would be more inclined to come back as well for another show.
Yes. That's what we're hoping. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's tragic that Neptune is closed. All theaters are closed. You know, it's just awful. But,
it is, yeah. My daughter was she wanted to do boot camp this summer so that she could then perform because you have to do, you know, as a young person, you have to do the boot camp, and then that gets you the ticket to be able to audition for plays. So that was pretty devastating. Anyway, just yeah, this has been really interesting because, you know, you see a lot of headlines, read a lot of what's going on, but it's really good to talk to the three of you here in industry. So I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. Amine, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, thank you so much, Elizabeth, Fiona, and Debbie, for sharing your stories and for really updating us on what is going on in the arts, travel, and entertainment industry within our own community here. And of course, thank you so much, April, for facilitating this real robust conversation. It's so nice to see that all of you are really thinking outside of the box to make the most of your industries in these challenging times. And although it was very sad to hear that Bistro Le Coq did not make it, what RCR did is really a great example of how in these times we got to really pivot our business models and transition into something that will make it. And I know that there's been lots of buzz around this new Bianca Aperitivo bar. That took the place of Bistro Le Coq. And I think that this place is really going to be successful, especially with the younger demographic and the young professionals. I know that my friends and I, we've tried getting reservations there for the past 2 weekends, and it's been absolutely full. So that's a good thing.
Those are wonderful words.
Exactly. And I mean, it's so hard to imagine living in a world without any arts or entertainment in our lives. So seeing how you all have been very resourceful it's really motivating. And you know, having these online concerts and Neptune home subscriptions, seeing that there are smaller live concerts to attend to, that's again very, very motivating and something to look forward to. And Fiona, we're really excited to hear what you're working on and what you're planning to launch to enhance this whole experience for performers. So keep us tuned.
Yeah.
From this chat here, it seems really clear that the theme of support local is now more important than ever. And, you know, speaking of that, Family Business Atlantic, we are hosting our first ever online holiday auction. And this is really to promote and support our local business community. So we are encouraging everyone to buy and support local businesses during this holiday season. And of course, it's a great venue to do all of your holiday shopping online. So do please consider providing a donation for our auction. You know, it can be a product, a service, or a gift card. And of course, the purpose of this online holiday auction is to support our local business community and of course our association as well, which has taken a huge hit as well there. And of course, aside from our holiday auction, you guys brought up some really great points that we do need to continue to push the message out to our members through our social media channels and through our newsletter, how important it is to buy gift certificates for your loved ones during these holiday, during the holiday season. So that's something that I'll make a point to Michelle and I to include this in our future newsletters. So for you guys on the line, as you can see, these coffee chats have really been a wonderful platform to connect us together and to discuss relevant issues with industry experts and just have some real-time conversation, something that we all have really missed over the past months here. And also it's been a great way to network. So our next coffee chat is another one that you don't want to miss. It's happening on November 10th, and it's going to be with Jordy Morgan from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And he's going to be giving an economic update on the latest news about relief measures and how they can support our businesses. And also we'll be looking at the financial impacts that this pandemic has had on many business sectors. So please feel free to join join this event by going on the familybusinessatlantic.ca's website under events, and also have a look at all the other future coffee chats we have coming up as well. So again, thank you so much for being with us here today, and we do encourage you all to take advantage of Family Business Atlantic's offerings. And thanks again, ladies, for your support.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.